Hamish Marr is a farmer on the Canterbury Plains. He was named New Zealand's Seed Grower of the Year in 2022, and more recently, as we'll find out, he's taken up a trade envoy role. Cosmo Kentish Barnes visited his family farm recently and found the Marr team in a tractor workshop.
Hamish, can you tell me where we are and who is here today?
Well, we're in Methven. We're 10 minutes to the northwest of Methven on our farm Longfield. We've got my father Graham here and we've got my brother Stuart.
How long has the Marr family been on this land?
Well, since about mid-1870s, so a long time.
And it's very much still a family affair.
Very much so. So Stu and I are the fifth generation to be farming here, still with Dad obviously. Dad had three brothers and they all farmed here previously. We've still got an uncle and we've got a cousin who farms next door, and they are on part of what was the original farm when our ancestors came in the 1800s. So yeah, very much a family orientated operation.
How much land have you got?
So currently we're farming 500 hectares split into 3 blocks through 2 roads.
And you're arable farmers?
Well, we say we're arable farmers, but in the true sense of the word, we're mixed farming. We do have predominantly arable crops, but we've got dairy support, heifer grazing, winter cow grazing, and lamb finishing with a neighbour in amongst all that. So in the truest sense of the word, we're mixed farming.
Stu, how do you work out who does what?
Well, that's just sort of fallen into place. But predominantly I look after the stock and Hamish worries about the crops. So he's probably got a couple of people under him most of the time. Because if you think we're about 3/4 crop and 1/4 stock, so, between the 4 labour units, that's sort of how it sort of works.
I guess you've got good land for stock farming because it's flat and fertile.
Yep, and that's one of the reasons for this, having the stock is keeping the fertility up. So we talk about when the land goes back to pasture for a few years, about giving it a rest before it goes back to stock. So it might be in that pasture for 4 or 5 years before it goes back to crop farming.
Oh, so quite a long time.
Yeah, give it a good break.
What do you love about being out here on the farm?
Well, not sure. It's hard to say because when I left home, I couldn't wait to leave here. And I went and became an aircraft engineer and worked at Air New Zealand in a big hangar and thought this was going to be great. But the city just didn't suit me. And it's just something about working outdoors with animals and machinery and the weather. And it's hard to explain, but people who are farmers know what I'm talking about. But it's really hard to justify on paper on a spreadsheet why you're doing all this. But
Those engineering skills would come in super handy here, I guess, on the farm.
Yeah, they do, definitely, but then it's part of living here too. It's always been part of the family thing. Motto's been fix it first before you go and buy a new thing. The answer's always no when we want to spend money, so you have to go up fixing it yourself or building it yourself, and that goes across everyone that works here and has gone before us, has very much been the motto. So
It sounds like you and Stu have got complementary roles here.
Yeah, very much so. So I come to the farm with a background in agronomy, and Stu with his engineering background. And a really simple way to describe how we work out our roles is that I keep it growing and Stu keeps it going. And it's a really simple way to juggle who's doing what.
And Graham, we are standing in a massive workshop here. When was this built?
1964, Cosmo. And we had an old building next door, which is still there, and with only about 10 square metres, and that was it. So it was a decision to build a proper workshop. So my father was involved with that, and we got it designed by an engineer at the time, and it's stood the test of time.
I reckon. Yeah. So how long have you been farming here? Have you spent your whole life on the farm?
I have. Ever since I was born in 1948, I've been here.
You always wanted to be a farmer?
Well, I guess so. It was in those days, in the 60s. Those of us from farms, we just went home and carried on, which is what I did. No tertiary education for me because I wasn't bright enough anyway, but ended up here and working with the team, and it's carried on right through.
Now, there is a huge machine in front of us. Tell me about that.
Well, this is a road grader, a Cosmo, which in fact was a contracting business locally which was closing down, and they had a grader for sale, and we sort of always thought about a grader of a reasonable size would be good. So we ended up having discussions with a neighbour, and he was keen, so we bought it together, half shares each. And we only picked it up the other day, so it hasn't gone far.
Yep. And prior to getting this, you had a horse-drawn grader.
We did. We had what was a horse-drawn grader, which my grandfather purchased from the Geraldine County Council for £52 and 10 shillings, which has been used here ever since. And that was probably before the Second World War, and it's still here.
Still here, and up until recently, it's been used every year.
Indeed, it's done the job, yeah.
How nice is it for you to have your sons working with you here on the farm?
Oh, well, it's pretty good, Cosmo. The only time it gets a bit stressful is when they decide they want to spend money and I say no.
Is that your default answer?
That's my default answer, yes.
Look, we try and all have a coffee here in the mornings together. My grandfather had a lovely saying that it's not much of a show that can't afford a man a cup of tea twice a day. So we always try and have a coffee here at 10 o'clock and talk about things. And we also have a farm consultant that comes once a month, and we sit round the table and chat about the bigger picture stuff.
How important is it to have someone coming from off farm to generate new ideas and keep things in check?
It's vital, because they bring a whole lot of outside knowledge, but they also come and they ask why. And the why is the most important things. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to do that? And they actually make you sit down and justify those things. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So it's important to think about all those things.
It's money well spent.
Most definitely, yeah.
Lately, of course, with interest rates being pretty high, there hasn't been a lot of scope for new machinery purchases, apart from this one you see here. And the only reason we really did that was because we didn't have to pay for the whole lot. We paid for half of it, so that sort of thing.
And I guess you wouldn't need to use it that much as well. So.
No, that's right, yeah.
I did notice in your shed down in the yard there, you've got quite a few tractors.
Yeah, lots of tractors, yeah. All different sizes and different tasks. So some of them big, some small.
Yes. And what's your role here now? What do you like to do on a day-to-day basis?
I do what I'm told to do, yeah. By these two fellows here, but I do all the finance, GST, and pay the accounts and do all the paperwork and that sort of thing. So that's my role. But I can shovel seed and shovel grain if necessary. So.
What do you love best about farming?
Oh, it's the challenge, really. It's such a challenge, and you've got to use your brain and your thinking all the time to try and get the very best result you can, while on the other hand ensuring that the welfare of the land is maintained, because we're on very good soil here, but we're exposed to the elements, and in particular the northwest wind, which is vile here at times, so hence all the trees around.
Well, you would have planted some of those trees, I guess.
Yeah, when I was younger. Back doesn't probably cope with too much bending now for planting trees, but yes, it's been an ongoing job since they came here in the 1870s, because there were no trees then when they arrived. So.
Cool. Oh, well, should we head out onto the farm and see what is happening?
Most certainly.
Now, Hamish, tell me about the view that we can see as we're driving.
Well, we're on Mars Road currently, and we can see, through the trees, we can see Mount Hutt and our view of the Southern Alps.
There's a good skiff of snow on the mountain.
Yep, there looks to be enough there. I haven't actually been skiing yet. Stu's been a couple of times, and I think, there's enough there that you can happily have a good day.
Now, we have stopped beside a large paddock here. What are you growing?
We've got cocksfoot growing in here that we take for seed, and it stays in the ground we take it for 5 harvests, so once a year in January we cut it and harvest it for seed.
And do you have a seed cleaning facility here?
Yep, that Grandad built. That's been another operation that we keep adding to over generations. Everyone builds another shed, it would seem.
And I guess that's a cost saver, because I know some farmers get their seeds cleaned elsewhere, don't they?
They do, and I mean, it still costs us, but then the advantage is we do actually get ours cleaned when we want it in the order we want. So sometimes it's just a matter of being able to get it cleaned in time to get in a container to get overseas so you could get paid for it.
And Graham, when did you first start growing cocksfoot?
This family began growing cocksfoot in 1910, which was before the First World War, and that was due to the fact that they had 7 wagon loads of wheat, which was carted to the railhead in Methven, and 1 wagon load of cocksfoot, and the cocksfoot was worth more than the 7 wagon loads of wheat, so they decided to continue, and it's been that way ever since.
What other seeds do you grow here?
Oh, well, we grow 6 or 7 different varieties of cocksfoot for different markets. The one we're standing in beside is predominantly grown for the Australian market, but we also grow for our markets in the United States and Canada, Northern Europe, and sometimes South America. But we also grow red clover seed, barley seed. We grow barley for malt. We grow wheat. We have in the past grown different kinds of vegetable seed, so radish and beet and things. We grow processed peas. We grow oats. We grow, what else do we grow, Stu? Oh, and we grow quite a bit of winter feed. We double crop a lot of our cereal paddocks after harvest. We'll plant oats or rape or other forage varieties for grazing either sheep or cows over the winter.
Why are seeds that you grow and other farmers grow here so in demand around the world?
Well, it's a really interesting story, this, and the two answers are climate. You know, we have definite seasons, so we have cold winters, which a lot of these forage and vegetable crops require. They require that the vernalisation, the cold weather, the short day length, which triggers the reproductive phase in a lot of things. But then we also have the hot, dry summers, which enable good seed quality generally at harvest time. The other thing is that our latitude south is the same as what the middle of Europe and Oregon are north. So the big vegetable growing areas in the world, those two places, what they want on their kitchen tables because of their latitude, we can produce for seed in New Zealand because of our latitude. And it's very much complementary in terms of our production, given that we're one growing season out. So there's a lot of seed produced in New Zealand here that then has time to get to market in the north. So, you know, the world really looks at New Zealand now for about 4 key things: for carrot seed, for radish seed, for red beet, spinach, and a whole lot of other things too.
Now we are driving across a paddock towards the Rakaia River.
Yeah, that's right. So our farm is situated on the terrace above the Rakaia River. The terrace is about 150 metres high, could even be higher than that. But it's a beautiful view right up the Rakaia Valley and into the Southern Alps. It's beautiful, on a day like today especially.
Stu, what can we see from where we are standing?
Well, we've got the braided Rakaia River down right in front of us, and about 3 k's to the left of that is the Rakaia Gorge. The original glaciers that carved out the valley made a beautiful big U-shaped valley, but it went over this harder piece of rock. And then the glaciers since retreated, and the river sort of cut a very thin track through the Rakaia Gorge itself, and where we are, the river's just branching out again. But it's ended up quite a lot lower than where we're standing. So we're on a high terrace above there, and there's a plains just below us in front of the river.
Hamish, what does the Rakaia River bring to your farm?
Well, the Rakaia River brings the soil we're standing on. So it floods, it recedes, it leaves all its silt behind, and then the northwest wind picks up that silt and deposits it on the south side of all the braided rivers. So right where we're standing is the result of millennia, I guess, of that system. But it also brings us quite a unique climate in the fact that it's very windy here, which has shaped the way we farm our land. But also in the wintertime, because of that river being so big, there's always air movement with the river. It means that we don't quite get as many frosts at our farm here as what they would in Methven, because there's always warm air, katabatic air they call it. So it really brings us quite a unique climate, and it's brought us the quality of the soil that we're so fortunate to be farming.
Now we can see some stock in the neighbouring paddock. Are they winter grazing dairy cows?
Well, they're heifers. We have that lot there are a May to May contract, so we get them in May when they're about 6 months old, and we take them almost right through to when they're about to have their calf in the following winter. And they're actually on an old Coxwood paddock, so that's one that's already 5 years old, and we've let it grow over the summer, and we're just break fencing that, and they're getting sort of 50% of their diet of Coxwood and 50% of silage.
And are they from a local dairy farm?
Yep. They're not too far away, about 20 minutes drive, that lot. So a dairy farmer owns those, so he pays us per head per week to raise them, so which is quite good cash flow for us. Obviously, crop farms, we don't know when we're going to get paid and how much, and so we have about 350 of them. So yeah, it's not a bad stock operation for us. It's low risk, and there's quite a lot of risk in the rest of our business with the weather and markets and all sorts of things.
So where will those heifers go to next?
They'll go on to oats probably for the last month or 6 weeks of the winter, and then after that they'll return to the pasture, normally about mid-September, and we want to get them on a rising plane really on the next sort of month or two, and to be mated sort of mid-October.
Yeah, well, they're looking very healthy and certainly enjoying this morning sun.
Yeah, young stocks seem to do quite well on Coxwood if they're giving quite good silage with it.
We have come back to the farmyard, and Hamish, one of the reasons I came here was to find out about your role as Aotearoa New Zealand's Special Ag Trade Envoy. Tell me about that.
Look, the Special Agricultural Trade Envoy is a really unique role, and it was a position that was created by the Minister of Agriculture many years ago, and essentially represents the New Zealand farmer to our government, to overseas governments, and to anyone else that's buying our product offshore. And so my role is very much focused on telling the New Zealand agriculture story to people that are buying our product.
So where have you been to so far? What countries have you visited?
So I've only been in this role for a year, and I went to Australia first off, and that was great, and then I went to Europe just before Christmas for a fortnight. I've been to India. I've recently, only 2 weeks ago, just come back from the United States and Canada.
It must be a real eye-opener for you, getting an insight into what happens behind the scenes in terms of trade negotiations.
Oh, look, it's a total eye-opener to me. Coming from a farm, and yes, I've done some governance, I've had governance roles and been involved in federated farmers, but this really is next level. It's such a privilege to be given the opportunity to see what goes on. And there's a lot of people working on our behalf behind the scenes, both in New Zealand here, but also offshore, working on that government-to-government trade things that keeps our product flowing into market, because the world's rules on trade are very, very complicated. There is a lot that goes on. Yeah.
What are some of the burning questions that farmers here would like you to explore when you are overseas doing this work?
Well, it's certainly always about new markets, and profitability on farm is at an all-time low, and so how can we eke out as much profit on our farms as we can, or even some profitability in some cases. One thing, and I'm very conscious of this too, and I might have said it before, is that because we're held in such high regard, it's how we put a currency on that regard, and so how do we actually get some reward for our good work and capitalise on that good standing.
So when you're in India or Europe, who are the people that you talk to the most?
It's probably 50% government departments and farming groups, but also it's really important for me that I speak to some farmers as well. So I try and get it into the schedule that we can understand what the local farmers are thinking, because more often than not, the challenges that the local farming community have are exactly the same challenges that we have here. The cost of inputs, the cost of labour, farm succession is always a big challenge, the price of land, the price of inputs, markets, we're not unique. And because this role is supported by government, it means that I have access to some people within governments and within countries that other farmers wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to sit alongside. And so it's those conversations that you get to have and people that you get to meet, really make this role very unique and very exciting.
And where are you off to next?
I'm going to China in September for 10 days. There's a red meat conference that I'm going to there. First time I've been to China, so it'll be really interesting for me to see where the land lies and where the opportunities are and, even where the roadblocks are. And we depend on China for so much.
Do you have any particular goals that you want to achieve while you are in this role?
If I can make a contribution to the longevity and the success and the sustainability of our farming sector, then I'll have done my job.
Now, Graham, before you head off, tell me about singing, because that's one of your hobbies, isn't it?
Well, I'm not very good at it, Cosmo, but I do sing, yes. Belong to the Mid-Canterbury Choir in Ashburton, and we do concerts 2 or 3 times a year.
And what part of the choir do you sit in?
Well, I'm a bass, Cosmo, and I've been a bass ever since high school days, so that's where I reside. So,
When you're out on a tractor, do you do a bit of practicing?
on my word, yes, it's great. Sometimes you try and tune your voice to the tune of the exhaust, and and away you go. So yes, I do sing on the tractor, quite a lot actually.
What's your favourite piece of music?
Without a doubt, Handel's Messiah. Such a beautiful piece of music to sing, and it's a great work, and it requires a lot of thinking and a lot of timing and a lot of planning, because you need to know what's happening next, and if you don't get the right note, you're in trouble.
Could you give me a wee tune now?
Amen. 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 Amen.
Gosh, what a voice.
That's the very last piece of music in Handel's Messiah, and it's a challenging work, but it's such an enjoyable piece of music to sing.
Graham Marr ending that story. Cosmo was also talking to his sons Hamish and Stu Marr on their family farm near Methven.